Once again, happy St. Patrick's Day to you all on this day in which we celebrate the patron of our diocese, and a personal patron of mine, of course, being of Irish descent. I certainly, on many levels, can associate with Patrick, even though he was not Irish by birth. He was by association, he was by enculturation, and he was by faith an Irishman, because of the fact that eventually that's where he ended up preaching and teaching and leading souls to Christ, was in Ireland. He was, of course, captured as a slave from Britannia, as a Roman, and made to serve as a shepherd for so many years, maybe a precursor of his life to come as a bishop, being a shepherd. But it was in that time and in his dreams that he heard from God the message that he was called eventually, ultimately, to go back to Ireland after having escaped and being ordained. He actually was called by God to go back to Ireland. Now, one might think, going back into the lion's den, if you will, would not be a wise move. But Patrick relied on the wisdom of God rather than human wisdom to mark his steps. And so in going back, he brought many souls to conversion in Ireland. And his expanse is known far and wide. Certainly here in the United States, we celebrate St. Patrick's Day with a certain aplomb, and we maybe have, to some degree, gotten away from the original intent of the day, the celebration of the feast day. I couldn't help but think when I heard in our first reading proclaimed by Bonnie, beloved, be serious and sober-minded, so that you will be able to pray. That sobriety may not be something that some think of when it comes to St. Patrick's Day or the Irish, but certainly to be sober-minded, to be focused on the Lord, is something that Patrick was in his ministry. And in bringing souls to Christ, Patrick reminds us that we too are called to be fishers of men and women, as our gospel reminds us. And I'm always struck in these gospel accounts of the call of the disciples and their immediate response, their immediate yes, their immediate following of Jesus, to follow him and to take up a new way of life, a radically different way of life. And that is the case when we say yes to Christ, when we commit ourselves to Christ, as the disciples did, as the apostles did, as Patrick did. Our lives are radically changed for the better, radically changed to turn our back on the world to some degree and focus on the kingdom while still being in the world. And this is something Patrick did beautifully in his mission. As bishop, as leader in God's church, Patrick knew that he must be in the world to do this work, but not so much of the world that he forgot why he was called to do it, to win souls for Christ. And that is what Jesus assures Peter and Simon Peter and Andrew, James and John, and all of the others who say yes to him, including you and me, that we are called not to be afraid. From now on, we will be catching men and women, souls for Christ. We will be casting our nets, if you will. We are called to cast our nets out into the world. And our world may only include our household, our neighborhood, our circle of friends, our family. But nonetheless, we are called to focus in on our relationship with the Lord, to make that relationship with the Lord the preeminent relationship, that primary relationship before all others. Not ignoring others, certainly, but keeping Christ as our focus, as the breastplate of St. Patrick reminds us, Christ before us, Christ behind us, Christ to our left, Christ to our right, Christ all around us. And indeed, Jesus is with us on our journey of faith, as Patrick reminds us, as the breastplate of Patrick reminds us. We are called to bring Christ into every relationship, every encounter, every conversation that we have, so that we might win souls for Christ, so that we might, as a people of faith, come to recognize the opportunities that God gives to us to be fishers of men and women. As a people of faith, we celebrate this day with great zeal, for it is indeed the love of Christ that compelled Patrick to, against convention, go back to Ireland, and in this case, in this time, to be a true shepherd, a full shepherd, not of sheep, but of people. And in this shepherding, to herd them towards the kingdom, to bring them into a deeper relationship with the Lord. May we, through the intercession of St. Patrick, patron of our diocese, our archdiocese, and patron of so many of us personally, may we, through his intercessions, win souls for Christ and be fishers of men and women, so that they may come to know what we through faith have come to know, that Jesus Christ has indeed broken the chains of sin and death and won for us newness of life.